This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. As long-time Raith Rovers supporters, we're very familiar with ropey performances. But if you need a service that's more Sam Stanton than Willie Accio, look no further than DIS. Operating across Scotland, they specialise in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repairs and more. So if you've got any problems at a height that even John Fredrickson can't reach, visit Dynamic Industrial Services. Welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast as we bring a very dry January to a close. Despite a not insignificant 2-1 win over Dunfermline on the 2nd, the Rovers have lost 4 on the bounce since, culminating in Saturday's 3-2 defeat to Caley Thistle. Jack Hamilton gave the Rovers the lead for the third game on the trot, but Iain Murray's go big or go home defensive strategy crumpled as chunky funster Alex Samuel scored a 9-minute hat-trick on his debut for the Highlanders. Zach Rudden spearheaded the Rovers' second half fight back, but an early Lewis Vaughan goal wasn't followed by any serious test of Mark Ridger's abilities in goal. Now, Dundee United's failure to beat Dunfermline at home for the second time this season does keep the Rovers within touching distance at the top, but the Rovers' excellent win at Tannadice is already starting to feel like a bit of a distant memory. So we did give ourselves an extra day to collect our thoughts ahead of this one, but I get the feeling this podcast might be a little light on laughs. So my name is Duncan Cameron, and they do say that misery loves company, so I am delighted to be joined tonight by Iain Latto. First of all, how are you, mate?
Yeah, delighted to be here.
Excellent. Christina Beattie's here too. How are you, Christina?
I'm well, thank you.
Excellent. Robbie Weir is here too. How are you, Robbie?
Not too buzzing.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We've got Carol Allison-Smith. How are you, Carol?
BN. Okay, fine. None of the above.
Yeah. And last but not least, we've got Scott Fleming too. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing alright. I'm glad it's a couple of days since the game now.
Yeah, it's not been the most fun of weekends, I think, for the Rovers faithful. And I think there's probably really only one place to start with this one, and it's going to centre around that starting lineup and that defence, isn't it? So Iain Murray kind of stuck with this unorthodox 3-5-2, if you want to call it that, albeit with Ewan Murray coming back into the centre of defence alongside fullbacks Liam Dick and Ross Millen. Scott Brown stepped into the midfield as Sean Byrne and Josh Mullen, and then you've got Callum Smith and Aidan Connolly as kind of wing backs and wingers, inverted, all in the one, with Jack Hamilton and Lewis Vaughan up front. So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of swing back round and go through the key points in this game, but to jump in just with a kind of general lineup and approach. Scott, do you want to kind of just generally kick us off with your thoughts on how the Rovers set out for this one?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wee bit surprising, just, again, the fact that we're now getting guys back from injury. I was really surprised to see us sticking with this. Well, he can stick with the 3, I think, but it's more the fact that he used 2 fullbacks in that 3, which has kind of bemused a lot of people, considering he had 2 technically fit centre-backs on the bench, so that was a little bit surprising from the lineup. But I mean, clearly Murray sees the training every week and thought that was what to go for. I'm not sure that there would have been too many Rovers fans, and going by the reaction, that too many people wanted that, especially when you've got Watson back fit, you've got Murray there, and you've also got Dylan Corr. And I mean, Dylan Corr played fine the other week against Queen's Park, which was all the more surprising that he was, dropped the following week at Livy and still didn't even play again on Saturday there. So I am starting to question a wee bit why we're going with this formation when originally the formation came about because we didn't have fit players. And it worked brilliantly at Dunfermline that night. it now needs to go in the bin. It's officially not working. And so, I'm sorry, we need to go back to there's nothing wrong with going back to basics. Just do the basics well. So I just think it was a bit bizarre that we went with the two fullbacks and a back three again.
Yeah, Robbie, give me your thoughts on the same thing, please.
Yeah, I'm very much a trust in Murray. I thought I didn't raise an eyebrow when I saw the formation come through, or the lineup. I wasn't looking into it too much. I would have thought that, again, Dylan Corr's really one that you suspect should be coming in there because he's a natural centre back that's fit. So why aren't we using him? Because he would have just added that presence, and he's not going to get caught in two minds. And as a group, we've had a bit of a chat about the players that we're using, the formation that we're using, and it just felt during that game that it's very much a case where there's a lot of players playing out of position and they're looking about trying to figure out what they're doing in their roles. A lot of really good players in our squad, but the way that we use them just let ourselves really down, which is the most frustrating thing. All the damage was done in that first half. But just with the lineup at the start, I mean, I wasn't too concerned other than Dylan Corr not being in the side, to be honest. I thought that overall it was right. I felt that having Easton and Turner on the bench seemed fair enough based on the Livingston match. But then the game came about and it was all a completely different story.
Yeah. Christina, how did you feel about that kind of starting lineup and then the choice to kind of lay the players out the way that he did?
Yeah, I agree with Scott saying that formation needs to go in the bin now. It definitely does. I would just be, if it was me, I would be saying more a 4-4-2 from this point on and just stick with that. And if it's not a 4-4-2, whatever he's going to do at this point, he needs to just keep doing it week after week. And we just need to keep that for a solid couple of months and see what happens. Because I think it seems the players are getting confused as each week goes by and they're doing something different every week. It's probably better just keeping a bit of consistency. I did think Rudden was going to start just because he was a new signing, and I thought there might be like a Rudden-Vaughan combo, which then when Rudden did come on, I quite liked that combo and I thought that looked quite promising based on Saturday. But I think he needs to have a back four where as I was learning today, because I was asking the question today about centre backs and full backs and all the difference between everybody. So I definitely think he needs to go for more a 4-4-2 from this point on and just try it and see what happens.
So I would agree with that in particular, but I feel like Scott summed it up really well there. Just stick to the basics. I think we have players like Liam Dick and Ross Milne. Just have them as fullbacks, and we don't need to worry about it. And even like we don't need to have them as aggressive fullbacks or like attacking fullbacks. Just get us stuck to what we're doing well. Would be for me.
And you can't also keep playing the Sam Stanton card. Like, yeah, we know Sam Stanton makes a big difference. We're all like wishing for him to be back as soon as he can, but he can't be the only dominating factor in this. So the way we play can't be based on Sam Stanton. Yeah, but it really, if he's not coming back for another couple of weeks, it still needs to be changed regardless.
Yeah. To your point about the back four, I agree with you completely. Leslie came armed previously with the kind of the stats on just how often we've had to chop and change the back line, and a lot of that obviously is enforced, but it's the changing between the 3 and the 4, I think, as much as anything. If you're having to shoehorn people in, at least try and minimise it and have as few people as possible playing out of position and all this. I think there's, and I'm not playing into cheap stereotypes when I say this, but you want your footballers thinking as little as possible, really. And what you end up having to do when you're playing out of position is think about where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. I was thinking about this earlier, and it's like, you know, when you learn to drive and you're like 3 lessons in and your mind is racing because you're like, hang on, my left foot needs to be doing something, my right foot needs to be doing something, but what gear am I in and all that. But then once you drive for a while, more and more of it becomes just like muscle memory, and you can just focus on what matters. looking out for hazards and stuff. I think that's what it's like with players when they're playing in their natural position. They can just worry about the important things. And then you take somebody like Callum Smith and you ask him to play like left wing back, and he can still do it because he's still a football player. He still knows what he's doing. But it's like the very first time you go and try and drive abroad and you're on the wrong side of the road, and suddenly you're having to think about stuff again because you keep going to change gear and you're guddling in the door. That, I think, is what that's like. And with that lineup on Saturday, you've got Ross Millen, who's out of position. Liam Dick basically is out of position, although I think he's probably the strongest of those who are. Aidan Connolly, with the amount of defending he's having to do, is out of position. Callum Smith is definitely out of position. Josh Mullen playing centrally, not really his game either. He's out of position. There's too much of this extra work that everybody's having to do. And I think that's, for me, the frustration with that is it's quite avoidable because you're playing this formation that nobody really understands anyway. To Christina's point, like if you play a 4-4-2, everybody knows how to play 4-4-2 because they've all done it. Probably 4-2-3-1 applies in the same way. They've all played that enough that people broadly know where they are. When you're playing this quite wild 3-5-2 with wingers and forwards as wing, of course there are gaps and there's miscommunications. Iain, how do you feel about that whole question?
Yeah, you've absolutely taken the words out of my mouth just by saying that you've got too many bodies kind of playing out of position. That is literally what I was going to come in and say. Like, if you look at the starting lineup, you've got Millen, who's out of position, Dick out of position, Mullen out of position, Smith and Connolly. So in Iain Murray's efforts to get more forward players onto the park, we end up asking the forward players to actually perform a defensive role that you'd be better just having a defender in there to do in the first place. So, like, you've got Smith and Connolly doing the bulk of their work going back the park, when you could actually just have Millen playing right back, Dick playing left back, and let those guys go and do what they're good at. So I think it just really becomes really counterintuitive in what we're trying to do. Mullen playing centrally, I think he's lost in there. I think he's got any attributes to play in there. You lose his crossing ability. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of left with putting in a dead ball, and admittedly we get a goal from it, from his corner, but you're taking away like the reason that he's in the team. Let's just get back to playing the players that we've got who are very, very good in the positions that they're meant to be playing. And if that means going back to accepting that we're only going to get 4 forward players on the park, then let's do that. Think back to the start of the season, how often we spoke about that the players that came off the bench were the ones that were making the difference. We've now got into a point where we're trying to get them all on the park to start with, and we've played our hand before we've even, before we come up against anything. Let's go back to with the 3 across, like you kind of 3 attacking midfielders and 1 striker. And if it's not working, let's keep the formation but change the players, put them on, and let's reinvigorate the game. I just think we need to go. Scott's bang on. Let's go back to basics. And this is very negative. This is a very negative podcast so far. Let's not forget that one win can really change everything here. Right. One win, the confidence comes back into the players. There's a long way to go, and a lot can change just with that one win.
Especially with the next game being Dundee United. Gaffer said in his interview, we win our next league game, we're top of the league. Like, it is as simple as that. There is a real positive in that Dundee United haven't been pulling away. They've not been putting points on the board. But I think we're at the point now where it stops being like, oh, it's a blip, oh, it's bad luck. There's enough of a pattern now to recognise actually there's a couple of things we could genuinely just do differently here that might yield positive results. I don't think any of us are claiming to have the answers or to be telling Iain Murray what to do with any confidence. But some of these things do kind of stand out to the kind of lay observer. Carol, you've been very patient. Give us your kind of initial thoughts.
I think everyone's covered it. I think on Saturday it was really evident that, like what you said, Duncan, muscle memory. People were having to think too much. There was too much space. I mean, Inverness, Caley Thistle aren't the most agile. They're like crabs on stilts, some of them. They do not move well. But we were giving them so much space because we were just having to think. Am I meant to be here? Am I marking the right person? What am I doing? Am I too far back? I mean, I do not like seeing Aidan Connolly further back. He should just be midfield up. Stay away from the defence. You're not doing your job. You're not doing what you're made for. And that's it, is that it just seems, it was so evident on Saturday that everyone was out of shape. And not physically out of shape, just mentally not where they needed to be because they were thinking too much.
Yeah. And I think even if you were dead set on that formation, you can make relatively minor adjustments and probably yield better results. Like, I think Ross Millen, if he has to fit into that side, I think Ross Millen's better suited to being the right wing back than he is the right centre half. Like, Dick is in the right place for that formation. Dick's better off as the left hand side. I think you're really, for a natural fit, you're having to play Callum Hanna at left wing back, and I've not seen anywhere near enough of him to say whether that's a good idea or not. But and I will, kind of put my cards on the table and say that I am really on the far end of not liking players out of position. I'm kind of die hard, just play people in their normal positions.
But they must be doing it in training, but it comes across that they have great training sessions during the week. Everyone's having fantastic time. This can't be a surprise on the Saturday morning that this is how they're lining up. But on Saturday's game, it was like they'd never played together, some of them. That's what it looked like on Raith TV.
What really struck me, though, was just how reluctant we were to change it. Because we could all see it was like, we get the first goal, which is fine. Header at a corner, fantastic, take the lead. But it just felt like there was an inevitability about it, which was really strange. You saw Caley they just seemed like a team of giants. Like, I don't think there was much about them. I didn't think they were particularly impressive. And honestly, the teams that have beaten us, without being too dismissive of them, because they've all deserved their wins, but none of them have been particularly like you sit back and you think, oh wow, that was a footballing performance to behold. We're still losing games by the odd goal, rather than winning them now. But it was just this reluctance for us to change it at all. And I don't get why we waited until half time before we made the decision to actually move it. Or get things switched up.
You've got Scott Brown there, who you could just drop in and go to a 4. You wouldn't necessarily have to even make substitutions. You could go to that. And I agree with your other point about Caley Thistle. I think the difference. So I said that after the Livingston game. I remember saying at the start that I was just going to say a load of stuff that made me sound really bitter because I was really bitter. But it's like they beat us without playing well. The difference, I think, was Caley Thistle beat us without having to play well. Like, they were never really asked the question, are you going to come and actually show something? Because, not to take away anything from the guy who scored a really decent hat-trick, but it really was a case of, like, there's no chance he thought he was going to score a hat-trick in that 10-minute spell. Like, we really made it too easy for them. And then give anybody 3 goals, and there's a decent chance they're going to get a result. And actually, having watched the highlights back, which I just did at 7:30 on Monday night, because that's when I finally felt able to, they're slightly more chances than I've sort of remembered them having. They were definitely in that game a lot more. But I don't think Caley Thistle will have many easier games in terms of coming up against a side that don't look like they're on their game at all. And again, for all the reasons that we've just said. So I tell you what, we'll jump into some of them. We'll pick apart some of these incidents, and I'm sure some of the same kind of recurring themes will come up. Let's. I tell you, we'll go through the goals, and anything else anybody wants to throw in, we can absolutely pick up. So the Rovers' goal, as you say, comes from a corner. It's a decent delivery. It's a very, very good header. Possibly there's a hint of a foul there, but at that point, I don't know anybody else was really thinking, like, we'd looked all right, but it felt a bit like a goal out of nowhere. And again, I should really start to learn a lesson. But I was like, oh, maybe we're going to do all right. Scott, how did you feel about it? And obviously, we watched on Raith TV. Do you think there was any hint of a foul in there?
Nah, at first I think I'd put into the group chat saying it's all because you guys were obviously going, was it a foul? What's going on? Because
it was a funny reaction in the ground. Yeah,
the delay, like you could hear the delay in the celebration on Raith TV as well. Like it was almost like a good second at least after the ball had hit the net that somebody went, "Oh, it's a goal," and then the rest of the crowd went. But at the same time, it also wasn't that big a celebration in general. But no, I mean, I agree. It was a really nice floated ball in from Mullen and a really good header. I would have been annoyed if he had actually headed it over because how close he was and he bounced it in the net, in the roof of the net. But it was. I just thought that was it Devine that went for the ball well, the centre back for Inverness. He just looked like he didn't pick him up early enough and then just had no desire to follow him in, sort of thing, and just flung himself to the ground to see if he would get a foul, pretty much. But no, I thought Hamilton got it well and headed it in, but I don't know. I just, as you say, when that goal goes in, that's 3 weeks in a row we've taken. Well, what was the minute that the goal went in?
25.
25. So it wasn't as early as like what we had been scoring the last couple of weeks. But yet again, it was Jack Hamilton 1-0, and you're going, please don't do the same as the last 2 weeks because it's been the same. And yet again, it happened just worse. But it was just, I don't know, we seem to be actually more vulnerable recently after taking the lead than we do chasing the game, which I don't know why it is the case, but it just seems to be since basically the middle of December when we've taken a lead, we've not looked comfortable.
It's difficult to put your finger on, isn't it? Because you'd think, just looking at this Rovers team, you'd think that would be where they might actually be better. They're just kind of slowing games down and don't. And I think that's, to beat the same old drum, I think that's a thing you miss without Sam Stanton. But Sean Byrne, Scott Brown and Josh Mullen should be a good enough midfield to knock a ball about and slow a game down and exert some control. But we've really, really have lacked that in recent weeks, as you say. Possibly. It definitely, it was weird. It was very strange. And I don't know, it's actually, as it goes in, Callum Smith's kind of turning around with his arms out as if he's looking for a foul. So I don't know if that has thrown people as well. Like, I'm not quite sure what's happened with that. But it was short-lived, that lead. The Rovers have a throw-in on the right-hand side at about the half-hour mark, and then it all kind of goes horribly wrong from there. But Iain, why don't you kind of talk us through then that equalising goal? There was a bit of a shout for an offside at time, but I'm not convinced now that I've seen it back.
No, the camera from the gantry in the back of the south stand, I think, pretty clearly shows that Liam Dick's playing him onside. To go from the throw-in, like we've got the ball in our hands, and then like 10 seconds later the ball's in our net, it's incredibly naive. So Samuel, something that Caley actually did almost from the get-go, from a Ridgers kick-out, they knew that he had the run on our centre-halves, our centre-halves. And, so Samuel drags Murray into the middle of the park and Murray goes with him. And as soon as the boy knocks it through the middle, the Samuel knows that he's got the legs on Murray, so he pulls him into the middle of the park, spins, and then just runs away from him. And Murray at no point gets anywhere near to getting back on side. The one wee thing that I did notice, and I hadn't picked it up at all, Liam Dick looks as though he's going to get back to cover, and just at one moment he glances over to the linesman, and as Liam Dick glances at the linesman, Samuel changes the trajectory of his run, and he does it as Liam Dick's not looking. And I actually think if Liam Dick doesn't look to the linesman, he probably picks up that Samuel's about to change the trajectory of his run and probably gets in front of him. But because he's not paying attention, Samuel then manages to nick in front of him, and Liam Dick left with the choice of, do I let him go on and hope that Kev makes a save, or do I rip him down and take the red card? And, he lets him go and the ball goes in the net. But split-second decision, like that decision to look to the linesman, to look back, and that's what makes the difference in that goal. It's fine margins.
Yeah,
you're absolutely spot on.
One of the guys next to me sort of said straight away, should I maybe have brought him down with the man covering? But that's going to be, I think that's looking like very much old rules, and it's going to be denial of goal scoring opportunity every day of the week if Liam Dick brings him down. It's just really frustrating way to lose a goal, isn't it? Just seeing someone getting spun, and you're hoping that Kev can pull something out the bag to spare our blushes. But so, to be fair, a good run, good finish. Aye.
Yeah, I'd add on that Samuel does really, really well. If you're a striker, and if you're a coach of a striker, he does every single thing that you tell them to do. Get away from the man, get across the front, hit the target. It's a good goal.
I think you're right about Dick looking across there. You're absolutely spot on, and I think by the time Dick's close enough to commit a foul, I think you bet it's red card territory. He's away from Murray enough. I wonder again if it's the... And listen, I'm not going to keep saying this. I will, but I'll try not to. I wonder if it's the kind of goal you lose if you're playing with the same back four that have played a few games together. Is it that? Is it the positioning? Is it the knowing when to go, when not to? It's quite a high line that we're holding at that point as well, especially given that Millen is taking the throw-in. So again, you need to remember he's the centre half. So you've taken a man out of your own defence, and then as you say again, Iain, that one that Ridgers just knocks over the top early doors really should be a warning sign. It's the boy Nathan Shaw who plays that ball through the middle, and it's a very good pass. It's very well weighted, but he could have put that more or less anywhere in that back line, and Samuel still got a really good chance of getting in. And that was then kind of followed very quickly by the second. This one again, difficult to kind of pinpoint one kind of key culprit if you were really looking for that. Sean Byrne gives away a kind of soft foul in the middle of the park. The ball gets kind of knocked in. I think it's Samuel himself actually gets the first kind of header on it. It's under Scott Brown, who kind of gets up in the air. Josh Millen, you can see what he's trying to do as he kind of moves around, but all he really succeeds in doing is creating a little bit of space for Alex Samuel. And then again, I think you've got to credit the finish. It's very well placed. I'm not sure it's entirely the connection he wanted, but he's put it in the bottom corner.
But he's had the time and space to do the blimmin' hokey-cokey in and out the box. I mean, he was in, out, and then he has time to take the shot. And there was like 5 Rovers players around him just going, what am I doing? There wasn't any one culprit. The culprit there was space and time, because he was given the time to bounce in and out the box. I spent most of the highlights just going, what was that? Why? And he was given space to go in and out. And yeah, he should never have been given that space, or never have had that space.
You've got three kind of consecutive headers in the box. Again, I think traditionally, if you're playing a back three, you've got 3 big monsters at the back who'll just stick their head on that. And it's really like, I think Ross Millen is closest to the first one, doesn't make any sort of meaningful attempt. Scott, you mentioned before, but he's not keen in the air, will we say, kind of charitably. I think that if you were looking to prove that case, that goal would be kind of exhibit A. He's just doesn't make an attempt for it. Samuel, as I say, kind of comes off his shoulder. Then you've got Scott Brown. I know we've used him in defence a lot, but doesn't get a great header on it. And then next one is Josh Mullen, somehow, is the next one in. Again, it's like a catalogue of small errors, but that, I think, is the position that we're in. It would be easier if we were just talking about the fact that we had this one defender who was horrible and kept kicking the ball on his own goal. These cumulative effects, though, as they start to look like a bit of a pattern.
I think it's very frustrating when you see the ball sort of drop, and it just feels like our habits of like hitting the ball clear. I'm not a footballer by any stretch of the imagination, let alone a person that was heading footballs when I was kicking the ball about, whatever fives pitch it was at. But it's just frustrating when you just see the ball get sort of kind of looped out. It's not like a proper header. It's almost like it gets looped back up in the air and you're waiting for it to drop to someone, and then it goes to a Caley player and you're just thinking they're going to get a shot away, and you almost just felt it, you just sensed it. And that's a frustrating thing at the moment. It's just this sort of I'm loath to criticise this team at the moment because of how well they've done, and I know that people will say it's happy clapping and things like that, but at the same time, there's definitely feels like it's just almost like it's got in our heads, and it's a bit like a soft underbelly, just this willingness to just chuck yourself in front of things, put tackles in. I know I'm going a bit John Hughes here, but frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same as you in terms of kind of loath to criticise, because I don't think it's mentality. I don't think it's lack of effort or anything like that. And sometimes it is just fine margins. Sometimes it's, and I think, as I say, 3 or 4 games ago, I think we were all on that page. It was like, we lost a couple of games, but it's kind of fine. I think we're maybe guilty of kind of not really learning lessons. The third goal then is it's another set piece. This one a little bit more direct. The corner comes in. I actually think it's an excellent finish. Like, it's the kind of the technique is very good. Again, he doesn't make a brilliant connection, but it's a very difficult one to kind of get across. Alex Samuels scored twice in that previous 10 minutes, and marking him for that corner. Bear in mind, we've got 3 centre-halves on the park a game. Sean Byrne is picking him up. Again, I'm like, come on, surely that's Iain Murray's man. Just
definitely.
Before you start, you just go, this boy is the big unit striker. We've got one big unit defender.
I'm more liable to. I totally agree with that. I think that we've just changed so much in terms of our team with the formation and the way that we've set up, and I feel like it's just been almost like we're trying to focus on playing this free at the back and shoehorning players into that. Then we get into a situation where we get our confidence knocked, we lose a couple of goals, and then you get into a situation like that, and it's just the basics doesn't get done, which is really frustrating. But
we
definitely are, isn't it?
And like Blair mentioned it after the Livingston game, where he's saying that like it almost shouldn't matter what formation you're playing. If it's a corner kick, you're just defending a corner kick. But again, it's repeat mistakes. It's the same thing again, and I think that's where you need to look at it and say, what can we do different? Whether it's consistency of selection or whatever, obviously something needs to change there. So that kind of takes us up to half time, really. Carol, did you feel like that game had almost gone at that point?
Honestly, yeah, it was, yeah.
Hoping
for a super substitution, maybe, but at 3-1, I was like, well, if we get 3-3, I will be ecstatic. But I don't see it coming. I just couldn't see. I could see them scoring more goals from us making silly mistakes, but I couldn't see us taking advantage of anything.
That was how it felt to me.
But didn't see where it was coming from.
By the other side of the token on that, as soon as we came out, we played 4 at the back, like Scott Brown in defence. Admittedly, it wouldn't be my first choice in terms of who was going in defence and who was playing there. But we looked so much better. We just, like, at the start of the second half, admittedly Hamilton goes off, which is a frustration, because he's been in among the goals, and I would have, we touched on it before the start of the podcast, you're really wanting to see Hamilton, Vaughan and Rudden on the pitch at the same time. But Rudden just brought a degree of impetus and just dragged us up the pitch so well, like in the first 20 minutes of that second half. But After that
Yeah,
period, I felt, yeah, we could. But yeah, based on the first half, it was just chucked it. It was daft. It was so daft. And Iain Murray's he's acknowledged it in his interview straight away. Like said, the formation, yeah, didn't work. Like he was quite blatantly clear about it. Everyone knows it. So it's all about how we move forward from it.
Listen, he literally said in his interview that he got it wrong, and he changed it at half time. And we said already, could have changed it earlier. I'm not overly bothered about that. It's not necessarily the way things always work, but I think when you concede 2 in that short spell, I don't think it's unforgivable to be thinking like, oh, well, maybe we'll get through at half time. You then concede the third and suddenly that's a stupid idea. But I'm not overly bothered with that. I think had they come out after half time without changing it, serious questions really would have had to have been asked. But he makes the change, and as you say, did certainly look better. Slightly kind of perversely, I think Hamilton going off might have actually helped a little bit, in as much as it kind of reined in Iain Murray's ability to chuck on, or chuck all his guys up front. We were almost forced into playing a slightly orthodox formation in that second half. But I think certainly they were more, they're footing the ball more in that second half. And that obviously, again, was and it started off relatively well. Zach Rudden, I was pretty impressed with, actually, over the kind of course of that second half. And he gets a really good run right early doors. It's not unlike Samuel's, but he's under more pressure the entire time, and by the end of it, the defender gets in and actually makes a really good kind of stop. We got a goal back through Lewis Vaughan. So give me your kind of talk me through the goal and kind of what you thought might happen after that.
Yeah, I think for the goal itself, you could see obviously after half time that we went to a back 4, as Robbie said, and that we just looked a little bit more fluid with our play, and just everybody seemed to calm down again and look like, right, we've got 45 minutes to kind of sort this out. And they actually, for once, looked like they were patiently playing football, which instead of the chaos that's been going on at times when we've been trailing in games, they actually looked like they were just being patient, working the ball around at the back, and then eventually Dick puts that ball in, which, Vaughan does brilliantly to peel, is it the boy, I'm not even going to pronounce the first half of his name, but the boy Mullen, for them. He follows Vaughan, and then Vaughan just goes, no, takes him away, and then Rudden just with that deftly flick round the corner, and then, the boy looked pretty quick going after Vaughan, but Vaughan was that far ahead, he wasn't catching him. And it was a brilliant finish for Vaughan. But, I didn't notice until the highlights that actually he had stuck it through the goalie's legs. I thought, he slid it into the corner. And it was nowhere near it. It was just straight through his legs. So it was an even more sort of cheeky finish for Vaughan. But, after that goal, I thought there's a chance we might go and get a third. But I thought it had to happen within the next 15 minutes. Otherwise, then I was expecting more chaos for Murray in terms of players coming on the park and players going off, and I was fully preparing myself for the back 2 to happen at some point. But it didn't come, but I think I just want to go back, I know it's negative, but I just want to go back to my own opinion of the 2 goals we lost after the equaliser. We are far too much of a soft touch at set pieces. It's actually getting on pathetic at set pieces at how much a soft touch we are. Josh Mullen, I'm sorry, you have to close Samuel down. I think he's shielding somebody. Just go for the ball. You're playing football, go for the ball. It's just simple. As you say, it was a good finish, but you have to close the ball there. And then Sean Byrne again. I know what you're saying about Samuel's got 2 goals, but Inverness must have had 3 guys over 6 foot, so I can understand Murray going for one of them instead of Samuel, but Murray Sean Byrne again.
Sorry to interrupt, but Murray's actually he's working zonally. The zone he's got is a zone that some goalkeepers would have. Like if you go back, basically as the ball's coming in, Kev's on his line and Murray is directly in front of him on like the 6-yard line, and it's almost like so they've got those two in the middle, and then everyone else has gone man for man, which it's not a ridiculous idea. And if the ball comes into the middle, Murray's free to go and attack it, and the problem is that it doesn't get that far. But it's frustrating to when you look at that and you go, you've basically got Murray and Hamilton are your two that you would really want as like big headerers, and Caley Thistle's back line. They've got more than that. They've got 3 guys who actually are big monsters, and then they've got Samuel up front, and then they've got like Billy Mackay, who's just a decent striker, also in there as well. Sorry, I jumped in there, but it's just I noticed that about.
No, the only thing I just wanted to finish on with was that Burn has to show more desire to win that ball. Like at the front post, I don't care how you get to the ball, you just make sure that your guy is not getting that ball. And I think I mentioned it in the Livy post-match one. We've had defenders in the past that just, as long as you're not going to get the ball, make sure your guy's not getting the ball. Or if he is, he's not going to get a clean sort of flick or a strike. I mean, Samuel, at the end of the day, I'm not sure if he's meant for it to go where it's went. He's just put his foot on it and went, right, it might go in, or it's going on target, basically. And it's a clever flick, but I just think we were far too soft in that 10-minute period. And we just need to get, I think Murray mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, we need to be far more aggressive, especially just at set pieces. Because teams are just going, we're guaranteed to get 1 goal off of the Rovers today for a set piece. But no, going back to the second half, I definitely thought 15 minutes after that goal we had to get the equaliser, otherwise I was worried that we weren't going to get back into it.
Yeah, and it never really looked likely, did it? Robbie, did you at any point? I mean, did you see a route to goal? Were you thinking, if we can get him in the game, or if we can get that, are we looking at an equaliser?
Yeah, I did. I felt that Rudden was a bit like Dowds is for Ayr United. Just drove I know Dowds is more of a sort of target man, but Rudden would just pick up the ball and just drive with it forward and bringing others into play. And I think with the players that we had on the pitch, that I didn't ever feel that we were out of that game. I didn't think sure, we've got this mentality at the moment where things aren't going our way and things are up against us. But I still wasn't saying, that's it, it's game over. As soon as we got the second, I was thinking, right, we've got plenty of time to get a third. And we can get a third, because we've got the players on the pitch that are good enough to go and score. But, the damage had been done in the first half. But I don't necessarily feel that the game was a write-off. And I still feel that there was opportunities, there was good shouts in there. Just after the penalty shout that Rudden had, which I felt was a tug on his shirt to bring him down, Vaughan sort of gets a shot that goes just over the bar. There's a few sort of scrambles in the Caley box as well. I feel like it's one of those ones where after the game you see the scoreline, you see that we've lost these goals and it's another defeat. And I feel like everyone forgets, like, we did have opportunities in there. I don't think we had many clear-cut opportunities. I'm not going to claim that it was like we were peppering the goal, but we were still working the ball forward. The subs all had very much mixed impacts. I felt that Easton was relatively quiet for Easter standards. That's been going on for a few games now, and hopefully he can get back to what we know that he can play like. Ross Matthews, really impressed with his cameo. I thought he was really good in the limited time that he came on. Turner just didn't really offer that much, unfortunately, and I'm sure that Kyle Turner was one of the best players in the Championship last season, but just didn't get a chance to show it on Saturday, or when he did get on the ball it was limited, and he had that speculative shot that ended up really high in the south stand, and you're just thinking, at that point you just think it sums up our afternoon. But I didn't feel like we were out of the game by any stretch of the imagination. I still felt Caley were there to be got at. I'm not buying into that.
Iain, would you agree with that?
To a certain extent. I think we've got the players on the park that can hurt a team in any given moment. It's just about whether or not we actually create those chances, and I'm not sure we really created enough. You've got guys making really talented guys, Dylan Easton making the wrong decision, like getting wants too many touches on the ball now, way too many touches. You know, he's got that one on the edge of the box. Liam Dick's tearing down the outside of him, and that ball just needs laid across there, and Liam Dick to fire it across the front, and you've got 4 or 5 bodies in the middle of the park. But Dylan's trying to dig it out his feet and then get a shot, and Dylan backs himself. He's a confident player, but right now he's not in the greatest of form. And like when you're not in the greatest of form, you need to play the percentages a wee bit more.
Yeah, it's almost like he's trying harder to pull something off because he knows he's getting these sort of people criticising him and saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Dylan's a great player. He's been fantastic for us, but just in this moment, it's just not quite coming off. Kyle Turner was another one. I don't think he played well. I don't think he played well when he came on. I don't think he had much zip about him. Gave the ball away quite a lot. Had that really bad shot into the south stand. It's just like we've just got. I just don't think we created enough to warrant us getting anything out of that game.
Yeah, that's where I am with it. I think I know Robbie, I know exactly what you mean, and I think the quality of players that we've got, there was always a chance. You know, like literally every single game we've played in the league this season, we've not ever been out of a game, by the final whistle anyway, by more than a goal. And I don't think there's any of those games where we've looked completely out of it either. We've not had a team that's actually just sort of contained us. I think with Aidan Connolly and Lewis Vaughan and Dylan Easton, and we saw it come to fruition enough times in the early part of the season, we're always liable to get a goal from somewhere because there's enough individual brilliance in there for that to happen. What was missing for me was any sense of like deliberate course of action almost, or like a real sort of strategy of, for example, I'm not saying this necessarily applied to that game, but like, oh, you know what, the left back's quite slow, so I tell you what, let's get in behind them. Or, you know, you can run at that guy, or any of that kind of stuff. It felt more like a lot of our players are quite good, so we'll just keep going and see if we can force something. And you could argue we probably should have had a penalty, but Iain Murray said it in his interview where he was like, look, if we get that penalty, we score that penalty, I'd still be sat here talking about how poor that performance was. And I agree with him on that. Like, I think, to go back to what we're saying about Caley Thistle and did they play particularly well, I mean, I think if we had stolen a point, I don't know that they would necessarily be sitting here today saying, like, oh, I can't believe we because they didn't, and again, I say they didn't have to. You know, when you get given 3 goals, there's not really an impetus for you to go and try and get 4 or 5, but it felt like Caley Thistle didn't have to bring a lot to the table, because I don't think we brought a lot to the table as a unit. You know,
one thing I would say is that see with us going forward, one thing that I find a bit frustrating is it might be a shout given that sort of Easton and Turner did have those speculative shots from the edge of the box, but like I do feel that a lot of the time it's just the ball's out to the wing, and then from there we kind of get lost up in the middle. Like we'll play it between wing back to full back, and then it'll go back to centre back, and then switch to the other side, and you're just looking at wanting someone to be at that sort of like 25 yards out, 30 yards out, to be able to sort of collect the ball there and just be able to have. And Scott Brown was actually really good at that last season. He used to arrive at the edge of the box quite late, just power in and just ping off strikes. He scored a goal against Ayr that came off the back of him, coming to the edge of the box off the top of my head. If we could get something like that, it would just offer us a bit of an attacking alternative. But again, it just wasn't to be. Caley were very, very disciplined. They did really well in terms of their job of holding the lines. It's a squad of big units. Like that's, I don't think there was much else to say about them. I don't think there was too much technical prowess on the go from either side on Saturday. But I just they stuck to their job and they did it really well, and they got the result they deserved because they outscored us. So simple as that.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And it's worth saying, for all we're banging on about lack of familiarity and all this kind of stuff, I think 2 guys in their back line were making their debuts. Had only signed that week. So, you know, fair play to them for overcoming that. It's not always a ready excuse. And just a quick word as well for Scott McGill. Because to your point there about sometimes it's quite prosaic and you were just knock it to the full-back, to the centre half, to the other centre half, to the full. I thought Scott McGill did quite well just in that very, very late period. I don't think he's a long-term, solution or option for left-back by any means. But what he does do is steps by his man, comes inside to try and just open up that little bit and move the opposition around a little bit. But I think that's probably enough dwelling on on that one. Anything else that anybody wants to throw in on the game itself on Saturday?
I think just a quick one, Duncan, that Davy Hancock said it. I think Carol have noticed it as well. That I think it was 3-2 at the time, that Inverness just, and a few teams have done it to us, AirJ especially, teams just know how, in this league, how to take the sting out of a game. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
And Davy hit it the nail on the head. Yeah. We need to find out how to do that. Our own players need to know how to do that on the park. They don't need Ian Murray to tell them. They should be experienced enough, especially the names that we've listed off this season in our squad. Mullen, Brown, Vaughan. They've all done it. They've all been there. So Millen, they've all got plenty of experience. So
Scott,
I think
I would argue the opposite. I think we need to put a bit more sting into things and actually start absolutely hammering people when they're bearing down on goal. I think that's the main thing for me at the moment. I think we need to be going in with a squad of Hornets or whatever, just absolutely battering them.
I just think that we need to have more game management in our game. It's so blatantly obvious that for some reason we don't have it now, and we've not had it in a lot of games this season. Even the games that we've done really well and we've had positive results, there was games that it probably kind of covered the cracks a little bit, like the Ayr game, for instance. The whole game we won at it, but we managed to get out of the mess that we were in and actually get something out of it. But if we had a bit more game management, who knows, we probably could have won the game. Or same with our Arbroath game. Yeah, again, I know it was a freak what happened in that game, but it was also a game that even at 2-1, just see the game out.
I feel like it's almost like a mentality thing, and again, it's kind of like we've said it before. You need your fan base to get like an atmosphere going, but you need the players on the pitch to do that at the same time, to like give us a reason to cheer, give us a reason to get on our feet and going. And there was a little bit of that, like in the second half on Saturday. You obviously have the sort of south stand, where we've spoken before about the ball getting sort of almost sucked into the net, but just over time it just felt like it was evaporating a bit. People start getting frustrated, but yeah, it just feels like things have gone just a bit flat in terms of the atmosphere, both in the team and the stand itself. And I said it a few weeks back, but it feels like someone's whispered in our ear, like, "Oh, you can't do this. You're going to bottle it." And then all of a sudden, everyone sort of went, "Oh, we're bottling it now," and now it's become a thing. And it's just like we just need to snap out of that and get our heads back. And I know it's a cliched point, and people will probably be like, "Oh, Happy Clapper is talking about this," but it's true. We're a point behind United. They've got a game over to play over us. There's nothing to say that we can't get a couple of wins on the go, and then things change completely, and everyone starts getting right behind the team, and it totally changes the mentality. But that's got to be driven from somewhere, and I think the starting point's changing that formation. Like we say, get the three at the back in the bin. Hopefully, we've got Keith Watson, Stanton back, and things can just drive on. We've got the squad to stop that.
It's not.
So there's positive.
Like it's tricky when you look at, you've lost X number of games on the bounce and all this kind of stuff, but because it has been tight, and I think until Saturday the performances were all, Leslie had said it, performances were almost still actually ticking up the way. That's a bit of a kick in the shins, but there's definitely, it's not, all hope is lost by any means at all. And just on the subject, well, this is true, and whose replies you look at. On the subject, though, as Robbie mentions about kind of atmosphere, Iain, do you want to come in on that? Give us give your thoughts.
Aye, I just wanted to kind of talk about the atmosphere a wee bit. I don't think it's any great secret that the club are trying to improve the home atmosphere, the atmosphere in the South Stand primarily. I guess initially quite like to discuss, like, why is it an issue? So for me, I think it's an issue because South Stand's a big place, and everybody who sits in it has been going for a long time, and they've all kind of got their little groups that they sit in, and everybody's got their home match day rituals that they like to stick to, and that involves going for a couple of pints somewhere and then going and sitting in their seat in the South Stand. Whereas at an away game, those guys and girls would probably travel by bus or by train, have a couple of pints, and then when they get to the ground, they probably all can stand and sit together, and then that kind of generates an atmosphere kind of on its own. So the club have tried a few things. Obviously, we had the kind of failed experiment at the start of the season with the railway stand, and it was a wee bit too far away, and it just didn't quite work out. I'm keen to see how the singing section at the front of the stand works against Airdrie on Friday. I can't go, but I'm really keen to see how that goes. I think there's a lot of talk online. Twitter is my main social media. It's the one that I use the most, and I think it's the one that's the kind of most active in terms of Raith Rovers and Raith Rovers fans. So I think it's quite a good barometer for how people feel about it. And there's a lot of people that are complaining about the atmosphere not being good enough. And my message to all of you listening that are doing that is, be the change that you want to see. So this is going to require... before I even go on to that, this is a once in a 20-year season, once in a 15-20-year season. This might not happen again for a long, long time. I don't want this to pass us by and us to be sitting in the summer thinking, I wish we'd just got together and got that atmosphere going, and maybe that could have changed. Now, there's every chance that we could get an atmosphere going in the South Stand and it will have absolutely no positive impact whatsoever. The team will continue sliding and you'll think, why the hell did we bother with that? But nothing ventured, nothing gained on this. Right? We all love this football club. We all want them to do well. I've never seen my team play in the top league. That's something I want to see. With every fibre of my being, that's something that I want to see. So I think what this is going to take is the young team that are at the back just now do a fine job, but their voices are too high-pitched and the noise doesn't carry and it doesn't create an atmosphere, right? And that's no slight on them because they're energetic. But I think we need a core of like 30 to 40, maybe 50 adults that are going to go to the back of the stand and be committed to use their voice and get behind the team. And then the kids that come along can supplement that with a drum, and we can just do a bit of coordination and just kind of get it together. Like, I don't think this would take much. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're interested in doing that, when we post this podcast out on the socials, put a wee comment in below saying that you're up for it. And if there's enough people, because it is absolutely a collective effort that's required here, if there's enough people, then we'll maybe think about taking that to the next stage. And here's the key point. The next home game after the Airdrie game is the Dundee United game. That is a perfect way to get that started. Get behind the team, get loads of people energised and into it, have a great positive impact and a positive outcome. So, Robbie, you can clip this up, we can put this on the other side, we can put this out so it gets a bigger viewing. I know more than anybody the sort of reach that stuff on Twitter can get. So let's give it a shot, right? Because I don't want to sit in the summer and think, I really wish I'd done that. So let's try and make something happen.
100%. And I think that the thing to that is to stick to that. And we'll do that. We'll keep at this, and we will, as much as we can, be I don't know what you would call it, a rallying point for ideas and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because if people have got ideas and they send them in to us, we can amplify them to the people who are listening, which, to be fair, is the target audience. Because this is nobody who's not interested in the Rovers is going to bother their arse to listen. Why would they? But the people who listen are the people that need to hear it. And I'm in full agreement with you, mate. I think you're absolutely spot on. And I think it's at the same time as obviously it takes that starting point and it takes it to be done. I think that could snowball so quickly because again, you've everybody's been at a game where they've been not part of the thick of it as far as atmosphere goes, and have been caught up in it because there's been 2 goals in quick succession or whatever.
And I get that this isn't for everybody, and that's fine. But I just think there's enough appetite amongst enough people that we could get the ball rolling with this. And if you listen to the custodians of the club, Iain Murray, Andy Barrowman, every player that you talk to,
Lewis
they
Vaughan
all
in his
talk
last
about
interview.
all talk about how big an impact it has when the fans are behind the team. So, yeah, there might be loads of examples of teams with very little atmosphere who play very well. But I think if the players and everybody at the club is talking about it, and the way that the club are talking about wanting to invest money into the railway stand so that we can get safe standing and get people in there, they think it matters. So if they think it matters, I think it matters.
Absolutely
Agree
spot
with
on.
that. I think as well, it's like, it's one of those things where there needs to be an identity to it as well. I feel like it'll just grow naturally over time and organically. Nobody's going to look to police it or handle it. It's just one of those things where if we all just sit and stare at it, nothing's going to happen. So it's about having that drive, and Twitter's the best place to do it. And again, we've got a good sort of soapbox to shout from, as to say. And if the atmosphere can be improved every other Saturday, rather than we get to a game like last Saturday or the Queen's Park game where things are flat and you just feel it needs a wee bit of oomph to it to get things going, brilliant. I'm all for that. Like, I'm not going to try and be everyone's best friend. I'm not going to sit there and proclaim like this, that, or the other. I'm happy to try and herald ideas and to sort of, if other people have ideas, try and get talking, have a bit of discussion about it. Because I feel like as it stands, we're all just sitting there with our hands, just sitting on our hands effectively, just saying, well, hopefully this might happen. Oh, we tried it in the railway stand, didn't work, so we'll not do anything. So yeah, it's just if there is any sort of shouts, then let us know and we'll try and help as much as possible. So I feel like going forward as a club, though, I think that it would be good to have it down the front. I mean, South Stand's getting fuller and fuller every week, but, well, maybe not last week, but I feel like if you can create that area that we've got down the front and have that, and I know that they're doing it for the Airdrie game, they've taken away 2 rows behind, so automatically you had the same people that you usually see on Twitter, and this isn't a slight against them, because everyone's in different situations, everyone's in different circumstances. Not everyone wants to be going and banging a drum and singing their soul out every day. Some people just like to go to a game and just have a chat with their mates, and that'll do it. But they were straight away saying, oh, but what if people can't see? But there's already addressed that by saying the 2 rows behind are closed, so it's fine. So if the club can just foster it, and we as people involved with the club can foster it, there's no limit on where it goes. It's just a case of like developing it and working together. So very much on board with that.
Yeah, last point on this as well is that I think the club's natural vision for this is going to be that it's going to be in the railway stand, which is fine, but that's not short term. And I think we need to make an impact now. We don't have time on our side. We need to change it up now. And I think, like, how many home games have we got left? It's 8 or something. Maybe not even as many as that. We need to make a big impact in a really short space of time. So we need to change something, because the thing that we're doing just now is just generating empathy, and not empathy, apathy. That's something entirely different. We're just generating apathy, and it's not for me. It's not an enjoyable atmosphere. I love going to the football and getting behind the team, and that's what I want to see. And I think there's enough appetite in the fan base for other people to want the same.
Exactly. Yep, 100%. And I think we will do what we can to kind of stick on that, and really try to see if we can build a bit of momentum with that as well. And with any luck, that will be driven by events on the park as well. And that's actually cheered me up a bit. I like the impetus and the optimism that's coming from that, and that was originally what I was going to try and do with the big question, was to kind of cheer us up a bit. I'm already a bit cheered up, but let's stick to that anyway. So for tonight's big question, to round us off, I would like for each of you, please, to give me a reason for optimism, or your biggest reason for optimism, because there are plenty. And let's see, Carol, let's start with you, please. Give me your usual optimism, please.
Well, I'll start like a positive broken record. The rumours are the website is on its way. So maybe February will be the website's month. Okay, I am going for full-on positivity here that we will see a new website. From a personal point of view, I love this club. So any opportunity that I can show off in some of my business classes where I should be teaching people the arts of negotiating in English, forget that. I'm going to show you Raith Rovers. And it's just, you saw them on social media and they love it. And one of my students even like emailed me back to forward to the club saying that I'm now following and I love watching Raith Rovers. But the website is just a little bit bleh, is the new adjective I'm going to give you. And I just think it would be, as an unofficial ambassador of the club, I think it would be great to show it off. So that's my positive thought. Come on, website.
It's the painting the fourth bridge of web development. But I'm sure we will get that. I'm sure we will get that soon. Right, Scott, give me your reason to be cheerful, please.
I'm glad you've came to me next because I kind of think I'm going to be stealing Christina's here, but the best player in the championship's coming back. That's literally, as soon as that link got sent to me tonight, I honestly was grinning. Like, I was just going, yes, this is what we need right now. I know we've been saying it's not just one player that's the problem and whatever, but like, it's just going to help so much to have him back in amongst the matchday squad. Well, I say the squad, he's going to be in the team when he's fit. Like,
I never knew that you were so passionate about Keith Watson there getting on the bench.
but no, Sam Stanton has just been... He has been the best player for us this season, and it kind of has shown that we've missed him a lot in the last month to 6 weeks that he's been out. But I'm just really looking forward to seeing him back playing football again. He's just a really likeable guy on top of that. So I just hope that he gets back to... Obviously, there's rumours they could be in amongst it on Friday. I'd rather just go, leave him for Dundee United in, that's a fortnight's time technically, so because we've not got a game the following weekend. So it's going to be good to get him back in amongst it. So yeah, I'm buzzing for him to be back.
Absolutely, I would definitely echo that. Robbie, how about you, please?
I'm going to give you two. The first one was an off the pitch one, which was that I took along my girlfriend who went to her first ever football game on Saturday. Now, she has never watched a football match in her life and has no idea about the sport whatsoever, which meant that I got hit with hard-hitting questions such as, but why do they take throw-ins? Why don't they just kick it in? Which is actually a very hard question to answer. Like, I had
Reasonable
no idea
question.
how to do that. But yeah, she had a really good time. She picked up the basics really quickly in the sense that she thought Alex Samuel was a wanker, she didn't like the referee, and that she thought that Lewis Bond was fantastic. So shout out to Emma, well done, you're doing fantastic work. Then on the pitch, Thunderballed, the big baldy bearded front man on the pitch was doing the spectacular work. I was really impressed by Zach Ruddin. Thought that he offered a lot that will help us going forward, just being able to, said it a few times now, bridging the link between midfield and attack. Just really keen to get on the ball and drive forward, which as a fan I completely love to see. So again, I know that it's not been a great run of form, but I'm more than happy to stick with this team. And I feel like if we get the formation binned that we've been using before, we get back to basics, we start blootering players when they're on the ball coming forward, and we get the ball to Zach Ruddin when we're going forward, I think that our fortunes will change quickly.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you mine as well because it's very, very similar. You mentioned already that's Jack Hamilton into double figures for goals now. Lewis Vaughan has extended his lead as the top goal scorer in the championship, and Zach Ruddin, even if he doesn't actually bring goals, is another very, very good striker. I think we saw that even in his 45 minutes there. That's a really, really good strike force. You know, that's more strikers than anybody except Iain Murray would ideally field at any one time. And that's a very, very positive place to be. We talked, earlier in the season about sort of Dundee United and like, is their 11 better than ours? Maybe. Is their full squad better than ours? I'm really not convinced it is. I'm not convinced they've got the depth. probably what we were saying though at that point was like, maybe except up front, we don't really have a lot of depth. I think now we do. I genuinely think there's a real basis for a proper title tilt squad there if a couple of other things come together. And Iain, bring us home, please, with your reasons for to be optimistic at the moment.
Yeah, not for the first time tonight. You stole my answer. I'd actually written down just Hamilton really motoring now. Lewis Vaughan with another goal, absolutely flying. So happy to just see him back doing what he does best. And I thought Zach Rudden looked excellent in his kind of 45-minute cameo. And I just wanted to compare it to this time last year when we had Jamie Gullen, John Fredrickson, Willie Akio and Isma Goncalves waddling about up front. So, yeah, there's reasons to be cheerful, and there's that.
Get in your happy clapping now, people.
Yeah. The strike force is
More than meh.
More than meh, you're right there.
Zach Rudden, more than meh. I think that's
Zach Rudden could do a backflip.
I did enjoy that. I'm not going to test him with that, but I did enjoy Blair getting an absolute body and in the group chat straight away. Everyone going like, meh, question mark.
I think he might, based on that short piece of evidence, I think he might come to regret that. And to be fair, I think nobody would be more delighted than him if he does have to eat that one. Is that a word, or is it just a sound? I'm not entirely sure, but we can we'll litigate that another time, because I think that will bring us to a close for this one. A good hour and 15 minutes on a game that none of us wanted to talk about. So thank you once again, everybody, for listening and for watching, if you did choose to do so. As Weirdos. Iain says, I think there is a real scope for the whole fan base to kind of come together. And if you get any ideas, you get any suggestions, you get anything that you think could do just a little bit of coordination that would maybe help generate an atmosphere on a match day, then we are available for that purpose. So you can reply to the Twitter, you can reply to the Instagram, where Carol's putting some really good stuff up there. I think the DMs are open if you don't want it out in the open. There's replies to the YouTube as well. There's plenty of ways, and it's anything that we can amplify, anything that we can coordinate, we will absolutely do our best to do that. And we will be back later in the week. I don't know if we might do it a little bit earlier given it's Friday night. I don't know, we haven't discussed it yet, but we will be back later on the week to look ahead to the SPFL Trust Trophy semi-final against Airdrie and all that may bring. So once again, I say thank you for listening, and we will see you again soon.